Welcome back into day 2 of the 2024 Quest for the Perfect Bracket Show. I'm your host, Michaela Chester. In case you missed us yesterday, I'm going to give you a quick breakdown. We have been tracking brackets closely for 10 years now at NCAA.com and TNT Sports. We started yesterday and will continue today breaking down this year's March Madness bracket with a lot of other fun stuff in between. As more people fill out their brackets and more brackets lock, we will have more information on what the majority of people have been picking in their brackets. If you have not yet filled out your brackets, scan that QR code on the left. We have a cool setup here. The countdown clock on top is counting us down till brackets lock. We have live social media feeds coming in on the bottom left, and on the very bottom, we have bracket facts rotating the entire show. So here's the bracket you're seeing. UConn is the #1 overall seed with Houston, UNC, and Purdue as the 3 other 1 seeds. First, let's take a look at the schedule. The first 4 is today and Wednesday. The winners of those games will enter what will then be the 64-team bracket that tens and millions of us will use to fill out our brackets. The first round's Thursday and Friday with 16 games per day. The second round is Saturday and Sunday. And then the second weekend will be the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 before we head to Arizona for the Final Four. And lastly, before we dive in, let's take a look at the guests that we will have here on the show. They'll all be appearing at different times throughout the 4 days. Yesterday, we talked to senior CNN data reporter Harry Enton. He joined us from the Magic Wall in the CNN headquarters at Hudson Yards. You can find that clip on YouTube or NCAA.com. Autumn Johnson will join us today, who covers women's basketball for NCAA Digital. Andy Katz will also be with us today, our lead men's basketball reporter for NCAA.com. We'll have Sharif Muhammad and CJ Schaefer back with us, the March Madness social media leads. Daniel Wilco, a past bracket reporter, bracket historian, who now runs Bracket Challenge Game. And to start us off, Wayne Stats, our lead bracket reporter at NCAA.com and TNT Sports. Stats has been giving us the inside scoop on data coming in on this year's bracket. So we're going to go to Wayne first. Stats, tell us a little bit about the data that we have coming in.
Yeah, so we got some fun stuff. So we saw the first kind of batch coming through yesterday, and there's been some changes, which is kind of cool, seeing in real time the things that have changed. So if we take a look here, let's start with, I think the big one is what people are picking to win. So again, this is by percentage. So this is Bracket Challenge Game players in our men's game, the percentages that they're picked to win the championship. So you can see UConn is the champion on 25.53% of brackets. Pretty good number. You can see a gap over them between Houston and UNC are the second and third one. Not the highest we've seen on record. We've seen Kentucky when they were undefeated in 2015 was above 46%. But again, that was a pretty rare situation there when they're undefeated. And Duke, of course, was in the 30s as well. But UConn at 25.53% is clearly the favorite. But this sounds like we're talking margins here, so it's not a dramatic shift, but there was a flip. Houston jumped UNC to be the second most popular champ pick. Again, you can see here the very small margins here, but still kind of interesting to see Houston kind of jumping UNC a little bit. Houston is a little higher a seed on the seed line with the 1 seed, but again, this is very, very small differences here in terms of that, but still interesting to see when there's a change that high up there on the champ pick side. Again, we saw this yesterday with Kentucky. They're again very popular, the most picked team that's not a 1 seed. So they're the champion on 6.46% of men's bracket challenge game brackets, head of all 2s, which is kind of interesting. Speaking of this 2s, see Marquette here is trailing some 3s and 4s there. So they're champion on 2.06% of brackets. But again, the number, if that sounds familiar to some of you, you'll know that UConn was a champion last year on just over 2% of brackets. So Marquette, don't worry, it's going to be fine. That doesn't mean you can't win, but they are the least picked 2 of our brackets challenge game players right now on the men's side. And you got to talk about McNeese. So they dropped a little bit from yesterday, but still about 1% have McNeese winning it all as a 12 seed, which is kind of interesting. So that's been the change in terms of percentages of who's going to win or what people are picking to win. So a quarter of our brackets are picking UConn, but you can see there's some changes elsewhere down the line. You can see some more champ picks. Then we'll keep track of all these until brackets lock on Thursday. Mikko, do you want to look at some upset picks?
Yeah, I do. But first, before we get to the upset picks, is any of this super surprising to you? UConn being the favorite, picking them to repeat when they have a pretty tough road to the championship? Or how about like Kentucky above a few other 2 seeds? Any of this surprising?
Not really. So I think maybe at first glance, when I saw these numbers coming in, like, oh wow, Kentucky's has a higher pick percentage of brackets picking them than the two seeds. But remember, Kentucky's Kentucky. They're a very, very,
Yeah,
very popular fan base. People recognize them. That's an easy default pick. And also, it's kind of a cool pick if you don't want to pick all ones and twos, you can't go wrong with
right.
picking a Kentucky that's a three. That's a kind of cool pick there. So I think that's kind of interesting to note there. And then for UConn, I was wondering if this would go a little higher. We see not that, rising by over half a percentage point. That's not insignificant, when you're talking about small margin like this. So I'm
Right.
curious if that continue to rise a little bit here. We'll see if Houston and North Carolina, if they kind of stay neck and neck here, or if they kind of make a run closer to UConn. And then Purdue, you can see Purdue has dropped a little bit as well. Maybe people are scared off again as they start thinking about their brackets, but we'll see. But yeah, so I would say nothing too surprising the more you think about it, because it's one thing to look at the numbers and kind of just take them at face value, but really think about why people are picking the way they are. Maybe the most surprising still is McNeese at 1%. That's kind of
Yeah.
shocking to see, but people are sitting with them so far, which is kind of cool. People are not backing down yet, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's really cool. All right, let's take a look at those first round upset picks. These are always so much fun.
Yeah, so this is okay. So this different tab here. So what this is telling us is, for example, UConn in our bracket challenge game, 97.64% of our brackets have UConn beating Stetson. So that means that,
Okay.
out of 100%. So that's what the percentages mean for everybody. But you see, UConn, or UNC is actually getting picked higher to advance the second round of more brackets than UConn is by percentage. But again, very small margin. Um, but you can see here, I think this is maybe the coolest thing we've seen so far, at least this year, is the three closest pick games in terms of 50-50 or whatever are 6-11 games, three of them. You think it'd be an 8-9 or
Yeah.
maybe even a 7-10, but 6-11 games are the closest in terms of the split here. So you can see this one in particular, South Carolina, Oregon, that's the closest game right now. So you can see it's not 50-50 or close, that close to 50-50, but it's our closest one we have right now, which is kind of weird considering 6-11 by definition, by the tournament, a 5 seed line difference, that's an upset. So the three closest games right now are the upset games, are the closest picks for upset, which I think is kind of cool. And you can see, of course, Oregon, NC State, New Mexico, what they have in common, they all won their conference tournaments. So I think people
Yeah.
are catching on that bandwagon a little bit, which is kind of cool. And you can
Which
see,
makes sense.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, ride the hot hand, right? And
Yeah, I mean, I'll
the
probably do the
Oregon,
same thing.
yeah, I think I will be too. But actually, the Oregon one's really interesting because they're our fourth highest upset pick ever. The only
Oh,
teams that have been higher than them have all gone above 50%. So, that's really crazy. So that was 20. These are all 11 seeds too. 2016 Gonzaga, 2022 Michigan, and 2022 Virginia Tech were all picked above 50%. Two of them won. So there's good history here of being the most popular upset pick when you're this high on the list. Not that NC State's far behind either. So maybe they can catch Oregon tomorrow because they were ahead of Oregon yesterday. So it's kind of interesting how that kind of flipped today. Other down seed
yeah.
lines, you can see James Madison is again the top 12. Nothing too surprising there. McNeese is only the third pick 12 to win the first round by percent by brackets. But people who pick them early are sticking with them late, which is kind of cool. So there's some loyalty there. Stanford is again the top 13, not historically high, but still it doesn't be not that bad to be the top pick team for your year. We can see here we have the first four. So that's something we'll notice tomorrow once tonight's games end. We can see more about people picking specific teams that win today going forward. So that could be something worth watching. And let's go even further down. You see here, Morehead State's the top 14 seed. But the cool thing on the 15 seed line is we talked about St. Peter's yesterday when, of course, they
Yes.
made the Elite Eight run 2 years ago as a 15 seed. They're back as a 15 this year. They're only the second highest 15 today. They were the highest yesterday.
Huh.
Now Western Kentucky jumped them, which is interesting. However, the two of them together are still the most picked 15s we've ever seen since 2014 when we started tracking these brackets by percent. So you can see almost 8% and above 8% of BCG brackets have Western Kentucky and St. Peter's winning. Not saying combined, just separately they're getting picked at those rates, which is kind of cool. And then
So
Longwood is our
stats
most picked. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
on that one before we move on to
Yeah.
Longwood. St. Peter's, I get it. Everybody's remembering the big run from a few years ago, and they're like, oh, let's go and pick them again. What do you think about Western Kentucky being the top 15 ever to be picked in the first round?
Yeah, so I think it's to do with the Marquette thing. So I said earlier, the Marquette was the least popular two seed. Not saying they're not popular, just they're least popular of the two seeds. So I think that's part of it. Just as people maybe are, Marquette's not always 100% healthy lately. I mean, that's part of it as well. Western Kentucky, not surprising. Kentucky school has a very large fan base, so that's probably the problem. Hilltopper fans filling in brackets, which is kind of cool. And you know what? They're on the same bracket as Kentucky, so maybe the people are some hoping for Western Kentucky showdown later in the tournament.
Yeah,
And Kentucky's the three in the same regional as Western Kentucky's the 15. So maybe that's part of it as well. But again, not saying that St. Peter's is very far behind. You can see they're pretty close to each other. So who knows? Come tomorrow, this could
right.
very well change again. But it's still kind of cool to
For
see
sure.
in real time the teams that are flipping for the most picked. And see, St. Peter's is not like they're not losing a lot of support. It's just that Western Kentucky is getting more and more popular.
Yeah, and you can head down that line more, talk about Long Beach State. And then also, we talked about McNeese a little bit. Let's talk Cinderellas and teams that look like could be America's March Madness sweetheart this year.
Yeah, yeah. So this is for Sweet 16. So again, this is 91.81% of brackets in BCG have UConn in the Sweet 16. Very, very
Okay.
high.
Yeah.
You can see right here, the top double digit is New Mexico, which is, 18, almost 19% have an 11 seed in the Sweet 16. That's pretty high. So of course, New Mexico is playing Clemson in the first round. That's one of those 6-11 games that are hard for a lot of people to pick with a big upset potential there. And then if New Mexico does get out of that game, they would play the winner of Baylor Colgate. So that's kind of their path to the Sweet 16 that people seem to be attaching themselves to. And of course, James Madison, we saw them earlier, is another popular one. And again, the things with 11 and 12s is what helps them out is you see why they're higher than 8s and 9s. You can see here is because even though 8 is
Yeah.
obviously higher than 11, 8s have to play in theory a 1 seed in the second round, unless of course
Right.
FDU steps in. So that's why you can see teams like 11 and 12 getting more percentages or higher percentages in complete brackets than 8s and 9s because they avoid the 1 seeds. So that kind of explains why sometimes the seeds seem a little weird in terms of why the 11 so high and the 9s or 8 and 9 so low. That's the reason why. Particularly here at the Final Four, you can see this is a kind of a preview. We're hearing what we saw earlier with the champ pick. McNeese is the top double-digit seed, picked the Final Four. So 3.41% of men's bracket challenging brackets have McNeese in the Final Four this year. Again, that's not a large number out of 100% picking them, but for a 12 seed, that's pretty high. And you can see here, UConn, not surprising, is in the Final Four on well more than half of our brackets so far. I mean, you can see the gap here. That's where the separation comes. You see, these are pretty close, making the Sweet 16. You can see here, but it's making that jump to the Final Four where UConn really separates itself from everybody else. Not that 40% on by Houston's low, but you can see where UConn's status as the favorite defending champion really kind of shows off here.
So New Mexico, a popular pick to the Sweet 16, and then you've got McNeese and NC State right behind them as popular picks to the Final Four.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny how you can see that in real time and flip between how far people can go. There's a limit for some people, and then some fan bases are like, no, I'm going for it more. I'm going for it more. So McNeese's fans are the passionate ones here. At least the more passionate ones in numbers than the other ones. You see, New Mexico drops down to a little over 1% to make the Final Four. Not that that's bad for an 11 seed, but you can see the difference here with McNeese. It's a little noticeable on the 3% line.
All right, Stats. Well, anything else standing out to you or any other changes from yesterday before we move on to the women's side?
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious if these 6-11 games stay as our toughest deciders for people, or if maybe like an 8-9 kind of research itself as, in theory, you think to be the hardest one to pick at 8-9. So I'm curious to see if anything switches there, and maybe UNC fans see that their team's now only the third most popular team. Maybe they'll come to the rescue and pick the Tar Heels.
All right. Well, for those of you who have yet to fill out your brackets, here's a how-to video. And when we return, we will take a look at the women's side.
Welcome to the Capital One NCAA March Madness Men's Bracket Challenge, the best way to play brackets. When the NCAA tournament field is announced on Selection Sunday, brackets will open, and you get to pick who you think will win every one of the 63 tournament games. Feeling lucky? Choose the winners of each game yourself to fill out your bracket. If you need more help, use the NCAA's AutoPick tool, Matchup Analysis, which analyzes years of data to give you an edge. Use our preset stats and get a completed bracket in just a few clicks. Or you can choose from up to 20 different basketball stats to create your own custom criteria. Think defense wins championships? Crank up steals and defensive efficiency. Then click Calculate and let the numbers show you who to pick. Once you have your bracket, it's time to join a group, play with friends, compete against celebrities, or even choose your favorite school's official group. When the first round of the tournament starts, your picks are locked in, and it's time to sit back and root for the perfect bracket. Watch games in the March Madness Live app, and you'll see pick icons in every matchup to tell you who you picked, and a group view to see what your friends chose. Starting in the Sweet 16, find out exactly what needs.
All right, let's take a look at the women's side. We have updated data on how fans are picking in the 2024 women's bracket. And today we have Autumn Johnson here with us, the NCAA Digital Women's Basketball host and reporter. Autumn, thanks for coming in. I know you're so busy ahead of the tournament.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to join you all.
All right. Well, Wayne's going to give us a look at the numbers coming in. And then Autumn, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. So yesterday, South Carolina and Iowa were the overwhelming favorites. Wayne, what do we have today?
Yeah, so we look here in terms of percent to win the title. So, same thing with the men's. This is in terms of the percent of women's bracket challenging brackets have South Carolina winning the title, et cetera. South Carolina at 38.18%. So 38% of our brackets have South Carolina cutting down the nets as the national champion. Iowa, clearly strong number 2 yet again. Then there's the gap like we saw yesterday. But again, we kind of touched a little bit yesterday, but I think it's worth kind of reiterating. The second and third most picked teams are in the same regional. I don't know about you, Autumn. When I saw the Albany 2 regional, I was thinking, I can't wait to get Autumn's thoughts about that regional, see how that one goes. But you can see LSU, defending champion, of course, ahead of all the 2s. And UConn, also ahead of all the 2s. UConn, of course, always a favorite, or one of the favorites to win the championship. USC and Texas are the other 2 1 seeds. They're about even right now, which is kind of interesting, but they're trailing 2 3 seeds. But again, it's all about South Carolina and Iowa, which I think we kind of expected going in, maybe not by this kind of huge margin we're seeing still. A little down from yesterday for South Carolina, but still well above 30%, and Iowa above 30%. So that's kind of the big ones there on the title side.
Yeah, I would
Autumn,
expect.
what do you think?
I would expect those 2 to be right up there. I mean, South Carolina, in my opinion, I feel like it's South Carolina, and then there's everyone else. That gap is so wide when you look at, what they bring, that endless depth, that talent, the defense, rebounding is always a consistent factor. But I feel like this team is not better than last year's team. I mean, come on, you had Aaliyah Boston on your squad last year. But I do feel like this offense is reloaded, it's retooled, and it's dangerous. I mean, last year alone, you had 4 different players who are averaging 8 or more points. This year, you have 7 players to do that for you. Dawn Staley can reach to her bench, put in a starting 5, take them out, put in the other bench. I mean, keep going and going. She has so much talent on her team who can't skip a beat throughout the entire game. So I'm not too shocked on this number, but Iowa falling right under. I mean, like you mentioned, stats, that region is a gauntlet. Whoever is coming, this is... Wow, it's going to be a battle to just get to the Final Four, because if you look, Iowa's in there, LSU and UCLA. These are 3 teams who I would consider Final Four contenders and could possibly win a national championship when it's all said and done. So Iowa, they're going to have a tough path to get there. Even if you look at the second round, I wouldn't sleep if Princeton gets out in that second round. I have them as a sleeper. They always bring in one of the top defenses in the nation. They're equipped with elite offense that's ran by Caitlin Chin. So they're going to try to get through them. They have Kansas or possibly Kansas State, Colorado. Those could be 2 rematches that we've seen already, not just this season, but Colorado in last year's Sweet 16. So different combinations that, Iowa's going to have to get through in order to reach another championship run. But with Caitlin Clark and the talent that they have, they can do it.
All right, well, let's keep going through the numbers. Maybe let's look at some upset picks. Anything else that stands out to Autumn based on what we have this year? Stats, what are we seeing here?
Yeah, so this is what we expected. The toughest pick game is a 7-10 game. You can see 8-9 here. So no 6-11s leading the pack for toughest game to pick in terms of games that are closest to 50-50 split. So you can see this game, Ole Miss and Marquette that game in particular. A little over half are picking Ole Miss in that game, but you can tell how close that game is really hard for people to pick, myself included. I can test that one. I'm going back and forth on that. We could see here, Middle Tennessee is the highest upset pick right now. See up a little bit from yesterday, which is kind of interesting. Green Bay, a team that's won tournament games in the past, they're back as an 11 seed. And then Florida Gulf Coast as a 12 seed is their most picked 12 seed. They've won as a 12 the last 2 years. So if anything, I'm surprised they're not higher in terms of the pick percentage, but not that a quarter of the brackets picking you to win as a 12 seed is low. Just thought that name people remember and be like, I'm not downing them again. I'm going to put them in my second round at least. But we'll see. They play Oklahoma in the first round for Florida Gulf Coast. We'll see if they can go 3 for 3 as winning as a 12 seed.
Yeah, I mean, all of these are great sleepers. Middle Tennessee as an 11 seed. I mean, they were a team in the regular season who knocked off Tennessee. And yes, Tennessee didn't have Rakia Jackson, but this is a consistent NCAA tournament team every single year who come in and try to knock off teams and make a deep run. Green Bay is another team who's had a lot of success this season. You know, in the regular season, they knocked off Washington State and Creighton and also hung very tight with Maryland by 9 points. FGCU stats. I mean, you know how I feel about this team and what they can bring with Coach Smethsko and that 3-point shooting and now adding elite defense with it. I have them upsetting, possibly who are they going up against? Oklahoma in that first.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, so that would be exciting to see them go into the second round. I have that in my bracket. I'm going to stay true to it. They'll go up against Indiana. It's chalk. And Indiana, we still don't know the status of Mackenzie Holmes. So if that's possible, I could see them making a Sweet 16 run. We have to see this Indiana team if they're healthy, but I think they can make a deep run. These are some great sleepers in the tournament that people should watch out for.
Well, let's see the teams that people think can make a run to the Sweet 16 stats.
Yeah, let's do it. So UNLV is the top double-digit seed. So that's kind of interesting one, kind of inversion, a little different than we saw on the men's side. But, a 10 seed, nothing to be disappointed about. They play Creighton in the first round. So that's kind of where that first round pick's coming from. And the second round, they would have to beat either UCLA or Cal Baptist. UCLA is a 2 seed over there. But, 19%, that's pretty high for a 10 seed getting picked Sweet 16. UNLV, been ranked, they have a lot of wins, so they know how to win. Same with Drake, is also popular on the 12 seed line. Drake could always go on a run. They play Colorado in the first round, that region we talked about, the crazy regional with Iowa, LSU, K-State, Colorado, UCLA, that's all there. So maybe don't sleep on Drake either coming out there. They could be a tough out as well. And Green Bay, of course, also getting picked at above 8%. So that's how it goes down here. But I think what's really cool, Michaela and Autumn, if you go here and then make the Final Four, this is just a way to show this how dominant these teams are in people's brackets. Yeah. South Carolina is in the Final Four on 76% of brackets. That's so high, but also would love to meet people who don't have South Carolina in the Final Four. I just want to know what combo happens to have you leave out the Gamecocks. Iowa, of course, going in above 60% as well. So you can see the gap here again. We saw this in the championship tab. We see it even also here as well, that there are only 2 teams are above 50%, and they're well above 50% making the Final Four, which I think is kind of cool. And then this is a homer pick for a lot of the Lady Vol fans out there. They're only a 6 seed, which is not bad, but for Tennessee's history, that's not something that's too normal. But still they're in the Final Four on almost 5% of brackets in our women's bracket challenge game. That's higher than 4 seeds, 1, 3, and all 5. So Tennessee is getting picked a little above its seed line, but I mean it's Tennessee. I mean you don't want to doubt the history too much there, but we will see if Tennessee can go on a run. They're always that fan base. They play, of course, Green Bay in the first round, so which is not an easy one to get out of. But we'll see if the Lady Vols can beat Green Bay in the first round and go on a run.
Well, stats, I have them going to my Elite 8. I mean, if they can get past this, I'm really high on the Bulls right now, and only because I saw how they competed against the Gamecocks. They had to play the South Carolina team 3 times since February 15th. So either this team is really tired or they're really prepared for the moment. And you look at that first matchup, they only lost by double digits, 11 points. Those next 2 battles, I mean, it was right there in that semifinal game that Camila Cardoso had to hit this buzzer beater for them to even win that game. So they almost knocked off the Gamecocks. Both of those 2 games, those last 2 games that they matched up with them, only by single digits. So this Tennessee team is right here. They're playing their best basketball at the right time. And Rickea Jackson, she is the cheat code for this team. She missed out the first half of the season. Now she's healthy. She's given this Lady Bull team a push, and they will go as far as she will take them.
Well, that's all we have time for right now, but Autumn is going to be back tomorrow and we're going to go even more in depth. Autumn, for now, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to let you get back to it. I know you have a lot to do ahead of the tournament. We're going to head to break, but first we continue the series with Andy Katz, who sat down with 10 March Madness past figures for Cinderella stories. This time he's joined by Farokhmanesh.
All right, joining me now, Ali Farokhmanesh, who now is an assistant with Colorado State, but back in 2010, he had a three-pointer with 34 seconds left for Northern Iowa to knock off Kansas. 14 years since then. What do you remember most?
I think the points per game keep going up for me as it gets further away now. So
Yes.
like I tell everybody I had 30 that game now, but man, I still love thinking about it. It brings me back to reminding me of my teammates and the feelings and the road trips and all those special moments. That always comes back to me when I think about that game. But obviously the thrill of winning that game, being in that moment, and honestly, it was a road game. Like, it was in Oklahoma City, so it was very pro Kansas. But then the classic thing happens when it does in March Madness. Once the underdog starts winning, or it starts looking like there's a possibility of it, every other fan base jumps on the bandwagon. And all those emotions combined into one, that's what I'll always remember.
When you saw the bracket, what gave you hope that you guys could pull off the upset?
Man, none right away. Watching you're watching Kansas all season long, and I think they had 2 losses that year, and 2 years before that they won the national championship, and a lot of those guys were young on that national championship team. So no, there was not a ton of hope going into that bracket. I was not excited about it. I still remember to this day, me and my roommate Adam Cook, who was on the team with me, and was the actual Missouri Valley Player of the Year. I remember us looking at each other like, this is going to be how our season ends. We got to play the #1 team. First, we got to play UNLV, and then we get rewarded with playing Kansas if we survive that game. So no, it was not a whole lot of excitement when the bracket came out.
What was the key to ensuring that you actually close it out, even in the final 30 seconds?
You got to be aggressive. You can't sit back and let it happen. And I think that culminated in that whole moment. We hadn't crossed half court in the last probably 3 minutes. We turned the ball over like crazy. And so when it hit my hands in that last 30 seconds, I think that mentality, it wasn't like I thought, hey, the aggressor wins, but that mentality that was instilled in me with Coach Jake and the way we played and how we thought of ourselves and approached games, that was that moment. And the aggressor wins. So I didn't think twice about not shooting it.
What's it like to know that you busted brackets everywhere?
It's awesome. It's really cool to hear the stories. I think listening to everybody, usually at some point when somebody tells me about that game or talks about what it meant to them or how they felt when it happened, it culminates in some story of what they were doing and where they were. And to be a part of that and to know that it brings them back memories, I think that's what's special, and that's what makes March Madness special. I still remember like someone asked me, March Madness, what's the one word you think of or one person? And I went straight to Bryce Drew. And I think that's the names and those moments, that's what makes it special.
How did it change you and the campus?
Man. Well, here's a good story for you, Andy. So like when I'm in class, I got a finance class on Monday nights or Monday or Tuesday nights. I can't remember, but I'm in the class and I sit kind of second, third row, and there's these guys that sit in the first row. The first probably month of school, like I'm not talking to them, they don't talk to me. I show up, I'm wearing Northern Iowa stuff to every class. They don't say anything to me. Then we're about to play Southern Illinois, I think on ESPN2, and we had just gotten ranked or right outside rankings, and it was a big game. And these guys are talking in front of me, and they go, yeah, I'm going to the game. It's going to be great, blah, blah, blah. And they turn back to me and they say, hey, are you going to the game? Meanwhile, I'm wearing all Northern Iowa stuff. Like, they must think I just love Northern Iowa basketball because I wear it every day. And they go, are you going to go to the game? I'm like, yeah, I think I'll be there. I think I'm going to show up. And whatever, I play the game the next night. And then after the tournament in Kansas and whatnot, I'm going through the hallways of my business school after my 8 a.m. class and found out I was going to be on cover of Sports Illustrated in my 8 a.m. class. And I got people walking up to me, getting on their knees, bowing down. And like, I can't move without somebody grabbing me, somebody talking to me, somebody wanting to take a picture. And so from 2 months before, I'm in a class with these people that I've been in with for a month and a half already, that asked me if I'm going to the game, to all of a sudden people are bowing down to me in the hallways. It was a little bit of a 180, I'd say, between the two.
Last thing, when you look at the bracket now and you see a high seed, a 1 or 2 or 3 seed, what stands out to you as to why you potentially could pick against them and pick a team like Northern Iowa?
I think it's just opportunity. And I think the teams that look at it like it's an opportunity as opposed to a daunting task or impossible or however you want to look at it in a negative way. Coach Jake said it was an opportunity. And I think that's the way you have to look at it. It's an opportunity. And I was not looking back on it. Like, shoot, I was blessed. Had we been a 4 seed and we were playing a 5 seed, you don't look at it the same. And we were an 8 seed or 9, I can't remember, 8 or 9. And to have the opportunity to play Kansas in the next round, like that's what makes history. And I think when you get those opportunities, you got to take the most of it. And as an underdog, that's the way you got to look at it. And you got to come out guns a-blazing. And that's the only chance you have to win those games.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie.
No, thanks, Andy.
Welcome back to the Quest for the Perfect Bracket Show live. We've seen plenty of Andy already, and we now welcome in Andy Katz live. Andy, thanks for joining us. Where are you exactly? We've been making bets on what state you might be in today.
I'm actually at home at my home away from home office in Newport, Rhode Island. I lucked out with a schedule of a Friday, Sunday regional. So I was in New
There you
York
go.
yesterday. I was in Minnesota for a week. So I was able to come home for one day to actually pick up my dry cleaning, do laundry, repack, and I'm off to Indianapolis first thing in the morning. So it would have been a tight turnaround if I had a Thursday,
Yeah.
Saturday, but this way I can join you.
There we go. Perfect timing. Well, avid basketball fans might already know this, but for those who don't, can you give us your background on how long you've been covering March Madness and college basketball and how you got into it?
All right. So first of all, you're not allowed to tell me when you were born. That's number one. Because
Got it.
clearly my career surpasses your lifespan. Although I don't do a good job of not being gray here.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, I mean, it dates back. This is going to be my first Final Four was 92 in Minnesota when Duke won
Okay.
the second of its back-to-back championships.
Definitely
Last
not going
time
to tell you when I was born then.
Yeah, don't. Then after that, obviously Florida did it a decade later, and now we have a chance maybe UConn would. So yeah, my career, I mean, I was working covering it sort of at Wisconsin when I went to school, but really it started in Albuquerque, covering the University of New Mexico, which sidebar will tell you this is the best, most talented New Mexico team I've seen since I was covering them. And then I went to Fresno to cover Tark, where I was the beat writer and Adrian Wojnarowski was the columnist. So I knew Woj before the Woj bombs and all his NBA coverage. And then went to ESPN in the fall of '99 and was there till 2017 before I joined the NCAA.
All right. So tell us now about your role with the NCAA, NCAA.com, and March Madness. What do you do?
Well, it's a year-round gig and it has morphed in a variety of ways. We had a great run of our social series during the pandemic, where we were doing all that. And it's covering the sport year-round in various forms for NCAA.com, for March Madness MBB on social media, now Bleacher Report, doing a lot with them. A lot of times it was stories and videos and interviews, and now a word I did not know, Michaela, that existed called listicles. I did not know that word existed. It's a new word for me that I've learned over the last couple of years. Podcasting in the traditional form, now it's more streams. So I have said this to many, a younger person that is getting in the business, that if you don't adapt, you will get left aside. And you've got to adapt and change with the times. I'll tell you, my phone, I now do videos on that. I used to have a camera. And if you don't adapt to using a phone and for content, because content to me is king and queen, always will be, always has been. And that's what it's all about. And you've got to adapt with everything. And that's what I've continued to do. And hopefully has kept me relevant. I don't know if we're screen sharing here, but I'm seeing a picture of me and President Obama. Little
I was
disappointed
going to
that
get to that.
All right. Well, I was going to say, all right, well, I'll let you do you be the host here.
Well, we do want to know more about this. So tell us, we know you went to the White House and you did a bracket with President Obama. So we have this photo up now. Everybody sees it. Let's hear all about it.
All right. So I've told the story many times, but I will tell it again. So I went 8 straight years. What happened was I was doing a story for Outside the Lines. I was doing the basketball in the Obamas. Someone else was doing auto racing in the McCains. This is the 08 election. Again, don't tell me where you were in 2008. You definitely were born. I know that. So 2008 election, interviewed everyone related to then Senator Obama. We went to the convention, had this whole piece. And the last piece of the puzzle was to interview him. And we got word from the campaign. We're going to meet him at a Hampton Inn in Dunn, North Carolina, the week and a half before the election, because he was going to go speak at Fort Bragg. So we're doing the interview in this little conference room. Sidebar, I can't for the life of me believe that they only gave me one camera, and we had no makeup person. We had the girlfriend of our camera guy who had makeup in her bag because the campaign says, hey, where's the makeup for Senator Obama? She literally pulls out her own compact and starts dabbling
Oh my God.
then Senator Obama. little sidebar there. Anyway, the key point is on Meet the Press that morning, Colin Powell, general, endorses Obama, not McCain. So you've got endorsing the non-military person. Why is that news? He's about to speak at Fort Bragg. What happened? Well, David Axelrod and Robert Gibbs are in the room and they say, wait a minute, we got to tweak the speech. Sit tight. Secret Service says stay there. That gives me 30 minutes. We're already done with the interview. 30 minutes, just me and Obama. In that time frame, he says to me, hey, do you still play? I said, well, I used to. I don't play that much anymore. He goes, you want to play on election day? I said, sure. And then, boom, epiphany. I stand up. I said, we're in the same chairs during the interview. I stand up and I say, Senator, I got a great idea. If you win in March, I'm going to come to the White House and do the bracket with you. He says, that's a great idea. Boom. I point to Axelrod and Gibbs. I say, you heard that? Yes. And to their credit, they kept their promise. I did play on election day. I did go to the inauguration. And that year 1, year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we lucked out because it was always the chance that something horrendous could happen and we wouldn't be able to do it. There actually was a tsunami once and that almost derailed us. But that did not happen. 8 straight years. In addition, interviewed him on the USS Carl Vinson when we did the game between North Carolina and Michigan State. I went to the White House and probably 4 or 5 other times. Title IX anniversary, did a walk and talk on the back lawn, shot some hoops on the basketball court outside there. So it was a great run. I do think it worked because he was into it. I don't know necessarily it would have worked maybe with Clinton because Clinton was a big Arkansas fan. I mean, with Bush too, I think you could have definitely done a baseball bracket. He owned the Texas Rangers. I believed when it was Trump v. Clinton, Hillary, that is, I didn't think it would necessarily work. When Trump won, we had to ask. We asked. He said no. And I actually was fine with that, regardless of politics, because I thought it wouldn't work. He's not into the sport. Obama is. And it worked. And it was a great run.
What?
So there's your story.
President, I know it's a great story. I'm glad we had time to tell it. What were his picks like? Was he knowledgeable? Did he seem to have a favorite?
Yeah. And by the way, we did the men's and the first year we only did the men's. Final 7 years, we did the men and the women. I think I did the women 1 or 2 years. And then we brought Doris Burke and then Rebecca Lobo finished it up, I think the last 5 or 6 years. And yeah, he was very knowledgeable. And I would jab him a little bit on, especially during the election year in 2012, if we were gonna if he was gonna pick only swing states and so on. But he definitely knew it. He knew players' names, and he would tell me that at the end of the day, this is how he sort of relaxed. He'd watch games at night and watch SportsCenter and stuff like that. And so it was his way of, and actually I was told many times that the 20 minutes we were together on that day, not because of me, but because we were doing something completely non-serious for those 20 minutes was some of his favorite time because it allowed him to just completely break out of it. And by the way, that picture that we showed, that's in the map room. I'm a little bit of a political junkie and history nerd, and I loved this room at the White House because it has these historic maps, including like a sort of a crude map from World War II of looking where movement was for Eisenhower's troops and so on, and just the whole thing was very cool. It never gets old. One little quick story, if I can tell you, that was really funny. The first year we went, which was the crew, and we only used them 1 year. They come in there, we get there hours before, and they just start throwing their jackets and their stuff whenever you work with a big crew, and they just throw it everywhere. Meanwhile, they're throwing it on like George Washington's couch, and the curators come in and like, whoa, no, do not touch anything. Do not put your stuff anywhere. And people forgot we're literally in the White House, and you have to be very, even under the board where the bracket is, there was, things that were put underneath the stand so it doesn't directly touch the rug. All these things had to be carefully done.
Yeah, that had to be pretty cool. All right. Well, a great story. I'm so glad you told it. It's such a good one. But you've been covering this tournament for many years. This is such a hard question. What is your favorite thing about March Madness? And then a second part to that question, what's your favorite March Madness game ever?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think I'm biased in saying this. I think it is the greatest playoffs of any sport in America, because it's one and done. And yes, the NFL is one and done too, but you know, it just doesn't have the same feeling, the upset feeling that college basketball has. Certainly on the men's side, we've had a little of these upsets on the women's side. So you've got this David Goliath thing that always happens. May not happen in the championship game, but we always have at least one, if not a couple. We've got these players and these iconic moments. I mean, Bryce Drew's shot that we talked about here on March Madness. I mean, that's going to live forever. I mean, the fact that Valparaiso, this tiny school in northern Indiana, knocks off, you know, Ole Miss, even though isn't a great basketball school. It's still the SEC, and
Right.
there's so many of those kind of moments. As for my favorites, I would say the two that immediately jump out to me. One is certainly 2008. When we first time at the time, I don't know if it was the first time ever, it was certainly the first time in a long time, that there were 4 number ones that were there. And
Only
that was
time
the
ever,
Mario
yeah.
Chalmers 3-pointer to tie the game for Kansas against Memphis. They ultimately beat them in overtime. The drama of that one was unbelievable. Actually, I'm going to give you 3 if I can, please. And I mean, number 1 obviously was Chris Jenkins, so I should put that forward. You know,
Okay.
Chris Jenkins, that 3-pointer at the buzzer to beat North Carolina, and also just, I actually happened to be sitting next to Craig Sager. That was the last time that he went to a Final Four, and I didn't know him that well, but I knew him, and obviously he was sick, but he was still covering it. And I remember we just like grabbed each other, like it was just so crazy, because we happened to just, our seats happened to be next to each other. And just that moment was unbelievable. And then it has to be 2010, because in 2010, where I was sitting for Duke Butler, I literally had like a clear view of where Gordon Hayward's shot was going, and it just looked like it was going to go in. And it literally, like, it was one of those moments where you felt like you're almost in a movie, because everything was like, it was almost in slow motion as you're seeing the ball just go and hit the back of the rim, and bounce around and then pop out. I mean, if that had gone down at Lucas Oil in Indianapolis, Butler, Duke, I mean, literally, I mean, it would have been maybe one of the greatest sporting moments ever, because of who it was against, the manner in which the city it was in, everything. So that has to be in the top 3 for me.
All right. I love it. All right. We're going to have some fun now.
Okay.
So we all fill out our brackets every year, right? And obviously you, unlike many of us, has to be very public, subject to
Yes,
scrutiny.
I
and
get
all.
vilified every year. Yes, the staff at March Madness wants me to be just absolutely just crushed every year.
Well, while
They get
we
great joy in
get-
seeing this.
well, while we give us a second to pull it up, because we do have receipts, and Stats is going to.
Oh, I know you got
screen share.
receipts.
Oh yeah, we got receipts. We're going to look at some of your past brackets, and you know, this is not easy, even for someone with your kind of expertise, right, Andy? So
Yeah, so
before
what
we
year
go
we got
through
here?
this, before we go through it though, I want to
Okay.
quiz you.
All right.
Do you know what your
Oh.
best and worst year was?
Well, if this was
Your best
2018,
bracket.
if this was 2018, this would be my best year.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
All right,
That's
well,
right.
Stats, take it away.
Yeah. So Andy, you're right. This is 2018. This is when you completely nailed the championship game, Villanova over Michigan. But the one thing I think is really cool, Andy, is since 2018, we developed brackets for NCAA.com. I like to call you the 11 seed whisperer. There have been 9 11 seeds to win since 2018, and you've got 6 of them right, which I think that's pretty good to pick upsets
That's
that at
crazy.
high
Hey,
percentage. Yeah.
you need to help me out then and be the PR, because it's those kind of stats like that you need to put out on a graphic to help my case here, because everyone judges the overall, bracket and score. But if I'm getting the nuanced right of a few lines, I think that needs to be promoted more.
Yeah, like right
Yeah,
here, you called Loyola Chicago beating Miami. Of course, that cool upset on the way to the Final Four. You had them win just one game, but a lot, that's more than most people had them going. And of course, Syracuse, you had winning in the first round as an 11 seed. You're at any time at Syracuse seemed to be in that, 10, 11, 12. You seemed like you were keyed in on that one to pick Syracuse, and it worked out.
Well, first of all, I could not have been alone in picking Virginia. They were a 1 seed.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we had never seen a 116 happen there, and of course it did there. I'm trying to remember why I was high on that Cincinnati team. Oh, that was the great Nevada Cincinnati game. They were
Yeah.
up big on Nevada and totally blew that game. And Eric Musselman then ripped his shirt off after.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, no one could predict UMBC. That hadn't happened yet, and now it's happened twice. So, that a whole new things that they're worried about now that, before you could just always pencil in one seeds winning a game. Now everyone's second guessing themselves, it seems like.
By the way, I think I was 1 year too early on the Michigan State over Duke. Didn't that happen in 2019 in the
Yeah,
meeting?
yep. 2019.
So,
yeah, you're so good. You're so good.
see
You're
it.
ahead of it. Yeah,
I predicted it in the future.
Yeah, we'll
Exactly,
put that on
yeah.
a graphic too, Andy.
Future picks the year before.
Yeah.
What
And
else
also,
do you
Andy,
have
you're good.
That's
Yeah. Andy was also good on picking the 12 seeds. So you pick 3 of the 6, which I think for 50%, when you're picking a 12 seed to win, I think that's pretty good. I mean, that's not easy to pick, the 12 seeds, especially when it seems like last year everyone was all about the 12s and none of them won. So to kind of pick the right combo is not easy. So I think 50% is
and I
pretty
think
good.
That's a key point here because everyone gets hung up on the 12-5s. But I do think this year, and maybe we're going to get this, but I do think there are a couple of 10s and 11s this year that I did pick that I think are going to be trendy picks and worthwhile, like in Oregon, South Carolina. I'm feeling good about that one. I feel good about New Mexico and Clemson. We'll see.
well, we are gonna get to your actual bracket, Andy. Any other years you want to show stats, or should we move on to his 2024 bracket?
I think we move on. Just I will say this,
All right.
Andy, to go show how hard it is to pick these right. 2020 last year was not easy for you. I know you picked Purdue and Arizona in the Final Four, but again, that was
Me
a lot
too.
of people did that. Yeah,
Yes.
I think I did too. So everyone has good and bad years.
All right. Well, let's while we pull up your 2024 bracket, Andy, we'll talk a little bit about, you talked about the scrutiny. I know how hard it is putting your bracket online. It's like everyone else gets to fill out their terrible bracket and nobody sees it. But
Right.
you got to post it every year.
Yes.
Yeah. So
not
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
All right. So you're going to pick this apart? Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah.
Well, Andy, take us through it first.
All
Talk
right.
through
Well,
some
I guess
first round
what I'd like to
upset
do is
picks.
I think it's better to give, I mean, I did this on Sunday night on Bleach Report, but I'll give you a little more rationale here because it was so quick the other night. First of all, I'm not feeling FAU. If you hold it right there for a second. I'm not feeling FAU. They stumbled down the stretch. I know Northwestern is limping down here as well without 2 starters, but Boo Buie is one of the best closers in the country. Northwestern in the New York area is going to have a ton of fans, like Wisconsin and Michigan and Duke, for example. A lot of students come from the Northeast to those schools. So there's a lot of alums. It's going to be a lot of fans for Northwestern and Brooklyn, like there will for Duke and Wisconsin in that same regional. I know they're all playing each other, at least not initially. So that was my rationale there. Again, I think UAB does not have someone who can guard Ladie. I like him. Auburn's obviously playing well with just winning the SEC. UConn's dominant. That's why you see them across the top. I don't see them falling here. On the bottom part, the interesting thing, again, Drake, I think, Washington State, I think, sort of peaked too early and sort of is coming down. And Tucker DeVries is going to be a big-time scorer. People are going to remember his name. BYU can score and shoot the basketball extremely well. But I just witnessed Illinois, and they are a freight train. Terrence Shannon Jr. and Ty Rodgers, especially those two guys, they are just like full steam ahead, and people cannot get in front of them. Marcus Domask is a really good shooter, and then Dane Danger is playing really well, and so is Coleman Hawkins. So I really like an Illinois-Iowa State matchup in the Sweet 16, which I think would be an unbelievable game. So hard. They'd really be physical. But I'm going with the UConn-Illinois Elite Eight in Boston, and feeling pretty good about it. We'll see. If we go down further, the other thing that jumped out to me, I mentioned down in the West, I just feel like Izzo, maybe I'm being too much in that corner. He's going to at least win one game. We keep waiting for this team to reach its expectation. March has been his month. So I feel like they'll at least get one. I don't know if they can get two, because they don't really have an answer for Ingram or Baycott inside. St. Mary's very difficult to play defensively, but I believe Alabama's guards are going to be too much for them. So again, I've got that Carolina, Alabama, Carolina more experience. The bottom part, I love the Lobos beaten by a Clemson team that's really been struggling. I haven't been all in on Baylor all season. I think New Mexico plays so hard, so many options, that I think they have a great shot to get there. And I feel like with Arizona, this, similar to Purdue, that, get upset in the first round last year, and they're playing with a bigger purpose. Adding Caleb Love was a huge deal for them. And then we get the matchup that they claim they don't play in, which I know they say they don't, and I don't think they can, because you don't know if it's going to happen. But you'd have Caleb Love against RJ Davis, former teammates, both player of the years in their respective conferences. I mean, I think we had Carolina, Arizona, UConn, Illinois on that side of the bracket. That would be pretty good. I mean, it wouldn't have like the crazy upset on that side, but I think it would really be great games. And on the other side, on the upper right, again, Houston looked terrible against Iowa State, but it was really the first time that's happened to them. I love Nebraska. I will say selfishly, I hope Keisei Tominaga can play longer. He is the Caitlin Clark, Steph Curry, plays with so much joy, hits threes from all over the place. It'd be great if he has a great run. Everyone's picking James Madison. I just saw Wisconsin 4 games in a row, last Sunday against Purdue, and then 3 games in Minnesota, and they're playing their best basketball. Now, they lost to Purdue and Illinois in that stretch. 2 teams are just better than them, right above them. Chucky Hepburn, AJ Storer, John Blackwell, they're all playing at a high level. I think they can beat Duke. Duke's been very inconsistent. So I think they could be in a Houston-Wisconsin matchup. Down below, Tyler Kolek's coming back, but he's not healthy. He's not 100%. And Kentucky has NBA talent. And I think this is the year they finally will play to their potential and get at least to the Elite Eight. And then I like them against Houston if they can play to their potential. And the bottom part, I think it's all made up for Purdue. They're in Indy. There's no reason they shouldn't get by Utah State or TCU. They've already played Gonzaga if they play them. They're better than McNeese. They're better than Kansas, and we don't expect them to be healthy. That's why I got Samford winning, as you got to pick one of those big upsets. And the bottom part, Tennessee, I think can get there with Dalton Connect, but they've been inconsistent down the stretch. But I really do like Oregon. And Folly Dante was phenomenal. He had 12 of 12 in the Pac-12 title game. Dan Altman does this all the time, where he, just basically gets on a run late, puts the pieces together, and here they are. So I like them.
And that brings you to your Final Four. Andy, you like Kentucky in the Final Four. They're actually a very popular champ pick in our bracket game too, more than any 2 seed. What's the draw there? You mentioned it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think Reed Shepherd will, like his dad who was an MOP, have a great tournament. Antonio Reeves is a really good scorer. Rob Dillingham is getting a lot of NBA buzz. If they can get the inside play consistently, I mean, they're just better than a lot of these teams in their bracket. They just haven't played up to their potential, in spurts in the SEC. So if they get there against Purdue, I think Purdue's experience, and if Purdue gets to the Final Four, I think the weight of the world will be off their back. First of all, they got to get to Detroit. Some bricks will fall off if they get to Detroit.
Yeah.
But then if they get to the Final Four, they'll exhale. And if they get to that title game against UConn, which is really the game we all wanted to see from day one, I think, because they were the 2 best teams this year. different teams, Houston, Arizona, whatever. Everyone had sort of a turn in that top 10 for the most part. A couple, maybe not as one, but looking like they were one of the best teams. But the game we all wanted to see, I think, was Purdue UConn. So maybe I'm willing this to happen, hoping it to happen. But I would take that right now in a second, and I would take either winner. Either have a great story in UConn back-to-back, first time since Florida in 06-07, or you have Purdue finally winning a national championship. Zach Edey, back-to-back player of the year, winning a national championship in his last game. The Big Ten finally getting one since 2000. Either way, it would be a great story for the winner.
You went with UConn, not trusting Purdue after what they did to you last year, huh?
Yeah,
don't
there was
know what
that
to do
little
there.
doubt, little doubt.
Well, Andy, I actually have someone in the control room and they're talking to me now, and he's very curious about your
Yes.
bracket not having Florida advance. I think we might have a Gator fan in the control room.
Oh,
So I debated that. I don't know. This goes back. I don't know if there's stats for this, but there's always a team from the first four that not just wins one game, but wins two. And you can go back. Notre Dame did it a couple years ago. Last year, Pitt did it. Obviously, there's the VCU, UCLA did it in the bubble. So I'm feeling like at least one of these teams, and this time I picked Colorado to do it, would be that team. So I'm also thinking trend-wise, in addition to what I really believe. I mean, do I think Florida's a better team? Yes. But I also was thinking, okay, where could I find these things that happen that I know always happen? And so that was my one that I pointed to.
Well, sorry, Ty, but there's your answer. All right, but
Okay, and listen, Ty, I wasn't feeling that Boise could do it, that Virginia could do it, that Colorado State could do it, but I think Colorado can.
All right. All right. So I'm going to ask you this before we get going to questions, Annie. What are some of your tips to folks filling out their brackets? Because stats did say you have been successful in many ways.
Well, so that's the thing. And I really hope that Wayne will put this out to at least pump me up a little bit here. And because there's nuances here. It's not just about picking the championship. I mean, that could be one thing.
Exactly.
2018, pick the title. 6 of 9 on 11s. Whatever it is. But I do think that you have to look for it's all a game of trying to find the right ones. It's not always going to be every 12-5 upset. There's usually at least maybe 1-13, at least recently. I don't think we should be picking 16s. I still think these are two anomalies. I mean, it's only happened twice. So I really wouldn't go down that road, especially this year. These 3 of the 4 number ones have been so dominant. I just cannot see it. In the 15-2s, yeah, that's happened. I'm not feeling it as much. I mean, I would say this. If the matchups were different, like Long Beach State, Arizona. I mean, Long Beach State, they fired Dan Munson. They're on a little run, but that's the wrong 15. Maybe if it was, if South Dakota State, I don't think they can beat Iowa State, but if South Dakota State might be with, let's say, maybe it's Marquette, because Marquette isn't 100% healthy. It's sort of like the matchups sometimes just have to click. Now, no one predicted St. Peter's. I don't think anyone did. So maybe that'll be the one again. Who knows? But I think, look for those. I think the 7-10 line and the 6-11 sometimes get a little bit underplayed as to lines that I think you could see some upsets occur. And I would also say it's not crazy to pick a couple of ones to get to the final and win it, because everyone's, oh, your bracket's boring. You've got 2 1s. Well, sometimes the best teams do win. So we have seen that as well. As I mentioned in 2008, we had 4 number ones. So sometimes it does happen. And, we'll see.
Andy, do you think this one's a winner? Your bracket?
I'm going to hope so.
All right. All right, so we've got time for some Q&A. We have fans dropping in questions for you, Andy, in the comments. So we'll start off with one from Mark. He asks, what is the biggest key for Stetson to pull off the upset like FDU did with Purdue?
Ooh.
Oof. Yeah.
Doesn't sound like a good answer coming, Mark.
Well, I mean, here's part of the problem too. And here's part of the problem of picking an upset. Location matters. Okay, UMBC, that was in Charlotte with Virginia. Not in Richmond or something like that. I know it's Charlotte, but it was not really that great a home court. And so I think that kind of stuff matters. There's just no way that UConn's going to lose in Brooklyn. No way. Certainly not in a 116. So you have to look at where, and that's the thing with Purdue. I can't see them losing in Indianapolis. It's literally an hour from their campus.
Yeah.
I just can't. To a lesser team, I should say. Because what we see is when these teams are, the underdog in a more of a neutral setting, the crowd all gets behind that underdog. And then that number 1 or 2 gets really tight. This year's bracket, UConn and Purdue especially are in such favorable locations that I can't see it happening. So I'm sorry, the Hatters, not going to get it done.
Mark, if you're still listening, we're very sorry. Okay, Paul asks, if Kolek is near 100%, does Andy think Marquette has a chance to go to Phoenix?
Yes, I saw that Marquette team in Hawaii early on and really liked them and thought they were going to, at that point, win the Big East and win it again. Then I saw them a few weeks later lose to Providence. So they were inconsistent, to say the least. But when they are healthy, they certainly have the guard play, the defensive ability, especially the fact that they are so hard to play against. I mean, they play really hard every possession. And in that particular bracket, yes, they could get there. I still like Kentucky better, but, there are 2 for a reason. And there's no one in that. There are a lot of teams that I don't think, could Iowa State beat UConn? Yes. Do I think it would happen? No. I just think that Marquette definitely at its best could beat any team. Yeah, I know they're the 2 seed, but they could beat any team in their bracket and get there.
All right, next question. Seo Kwan Kim asks, which region will be the most chaotic?
I would say, I think the most chaotic region will be everywhere in the Midwest except for Purdue. I think we're going to see multiple double-digit seeds win around Purdue, making that path easier. Does that make sense, Wayne?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think that way too, especially with McNeese, Samford, Oregon. That's not easy. Those are tough outs.
All right, a few more, Andy. Aram, he's asking, what's Andy's favorite arena to visit for March Madness?
Ooh.
For the tournament, it's Madison Square Garden. I was so thrilled.
I love that.
I was so thrilled that it finally came back. It was not there for decades. Came back years ago. I saw Michigan State, UConn there years ago. And then, I saw that unbelievable Wisconsin-Florida tie. Florida, that was at MSG when Chris Chiozza goes the length of the floor to beat Wisconsin. And then last year, the K-State Michigan State game, one of the best I've ever seen. The atmosphere was off the charts, and you think, oh, K-State, Michigan State, Florida Atlantic were there. Didn't matter. Great atmosphere, and Marquise Noel's performance. I think he had 18 assists, and Tyson Walker played great. I mean, it was just, that place was rocking for K-State, Michigan State, and there was just something about the Garden and the tournament and a berth going to the Final Four. So I'm a huge fan of when they host.
All right, one more question. what's the most surprised you've ever been in March Madness? I have a pretty good guess that Purdue had to have been pretty surprising last season, but you might surprise me with another answer.
Well, so the easy answer is UMBC
Yeah.
or FDU. But I'm going to tell you that I am actually almost more surprised by St. Peter's beating Purdue in the Sweet 16. And the reason being is they had a week. So it's one thing when there's that first round upset. It's the noon game or what have you. Everyone's got jitters, and then they get on a run, and now suddenly you're playing from behind. But what shocked me about that result was Purdue had a week because St. Peter's had already upset Kentucky. Their second game was Murray State?
Murray State.
Murray State. Okay. So Purdue, they're in the Sweet 16. I know it's in Philly, but you've got all this time. They got little guards, and they're going to fly around. Like it just shocked me that they weren't ready for that game, and then they ultimately lose to Carolina. But that one really, I was like, there's no way. All the euphoria St. Peter's goes back to their campus. They come back on the road that they're going to do it again. Like, just because, that game to me, I don't know if anyone agrees with me. Like, that was so remarkable that they were able to do it after a break, going home, coming back, and here you have Purdue, and they still lost. Like, I couldn't, when I saw that score, I couldn't believe it.
Stats, you agree with that one?
Yeah, that's a great point, Andy, because like these moments like 16-over-1, those are great, like one night thing onlys, but to do it game after game, 3 wins in a row, the long break between where everyone kind of is aware of you now. There's no hiding anymore. And especially Purdue getting all that time to prepare. I mean, the more you think about that, kind of is insane to think about a 15 seed doing that and winning 3 games like that. And that almost like the blowout loss didn't matter. Obviously, I'm sure they wanted to win the game, but in terms of our memories, you kind of forget about that Elite Eight loss. You just remember those 3 games were just,
Right.
Every time you're like, is this really happening?
Well, and to just say, to put a bow on this. So NC State, they win 5-5, obviously crazy in the ACC tournament. If NC State, if there was like a gap, and then NC, like some of these tournaments have, like in the America East, if then NC State NC went home and then 4 days later they played in Charlotte or somewhere, there's no way that North Carolina should lose that game to NC State.
Yeah.
But it's all in a row, momentum, and they got it done. And that's why I was like, I couldn't believe that Purdue had all this time and they knew all about St. Peter's and they still lost. So that one really.
I love that. Yeah.
And it makes sense that St. Peter's is now a pretty popular pick in brackets this year.
Yep.
So that's all
Sing it
the
again.
questions we're going to have time for. You can join Andy Katz's bracket group on the Bracket Challenge game. The QR code is to the left. Andy, thanks again for hopping on. We know you have a lot going on ahead of the tournament. So thanks for being with us.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, we're heading to break soon, but we're actually going to take a look now at you, Andy, sitting down with Sister Jean, talk about a classic March Madness moment.
All right, Sister Jean, let's go back to 2018. If you can, please, what is your favorite memory of that Loyola Chicago run?
I have so many favorite memories of that. Every game was a favorite memory, and it was different. When Dante aimed that ball to that basket, everybody knew it was going in, and it was quiet, and you could almost hear it slice through the basket. It was so wonderful, and we about took the roof off the house when we won that game. And then Clayton, he got that ball, dashed down the court, and threw that ball that went into the basket, out of the basket, and into it. And I said to him afterward, Clayton, I didn't know whether that would stay in or not. He said, I didn't either, Sister Jean, but I had to take the risk. I said, take the risk anytime. So, and then the others we did well too with Ben Richardson. And I relive that so often. And I was talking about it this morning to somebody else who came in here. They wanted a picture taken, their prospective students. And they said, I said something about them. Oh, they're from San Antonio. And I said, oh, that was such a hospitable city. Oh, thank you, Sister Jean, they said. And I said, well, it's true. I remember everything you did there. So I have so
How did that run change your life?
perhaps it gave me more confidence in these young people, even though sometimes when they were ready to go on the court, I thought, oh, who's going to be the fastest today? Who's going to get the ball? Because I tell them to shoot the ball to whoever's the best guy. The best guy isn't the same guy every time. So looks to me, you're all taking your turn. You're stepping up, and that's what you have to do. And it's like throwing a coin, making a bet. And it's just wonderful to see how these young men develop from the time they start here, begin in school, and then come to be juniors and seniors. It's also remarkable to me how the transfer students adapt so well, and the maturation process on their part is wonderful for them to bring to Loyola.
Sister Jean, how did it change the campus?
Oh, well, I guess the campus stayed up every single night while we were doing that. And they had TVs in this student center where my office is. And they watched every game. And some of them, came, and it was spring break was over. So they came anyhow. And they came like 6 or 7 in a car and slept in the car and all that kind of stuff. But the campus became more interested in the athletic department, and not just men's basketball, and Porter tried very hard when he was here to get students to come to a game. He used to bribe them with, well, he brought the ice cream to their residence hall, said, this is for you to come to the game. So he worked hard, and we finally got enough people, and the team played well enough that they really believed in each other and gave each other credit. And it sort of also jacked up the other teams to be a little bit more aggressive and do the things. So we're doing well. And when we got into the valley, I said to one of the young men from the track team, I said, we're working very hard in the valley. They should be happy to see us. And he said, have us. And he said, I don't think so, Sister Jean. He says, we're getting all the prizes. And I said, well, that gives a team a nice reputation, the conference a nice reputation. And he said, well, I guess it does. Strengthens our sports program, strengthens the confidence of the people who work here and the people who come to school here, and our fans, and locally and internationally. We were just all over the world and all over the news, and we appreciated being on the news.
What did your bracket look like that year?
I put our team coming to the Sweet 16, and then when we got to the Elite 8, Clayton said to me, Sister Jean, we broke your bracket. I said, keep breaking it. Let's go. So, but I thought if they got that far, it would have been wonderful. And we just kept going and going and going. And it was so much. The first day when Dante did that, and I woke up the next morning, I said, oh, this is not a dream. Get going. We have to keep moving. And it was just so much fun. And I enjoyed it. And, talking to the reporters. And one time I had 5 microphones in my pocket, even though the reporters were all around. And one reporter said to me, well, why don't you tell me, Sister Jean, what you said in prayer to the team? And I said, oh, I can't do that because you might tell the opponents what I'm saying, and I'm saying things against them. So, nope, I don't tell anybody that. And I said I don't talk to anybody at a game either. I'm very quiet and just I'm so intense that my body is probably as tired as it was when they get off the court. And we used to just hug each other as we did there, but since COVID, we just do nothing.
What would be your advice for other underdogs like Loyola to follow a similar path, to have that belief, that faith before the tournament?
I think that what they need to do, as Border helped to do our team, is to create a culture of sharing, team spirit, confidence. And they have to say, I can do it. I tell them that all the time. You can do it. It's like a little angel, little engine that could. He kept saying, I could, and he did. So we just have to do those things. We have to remember, and I tell them that they have to play with their heads, their hands, their hearts, and their feet. And then they looked at me when I first said that, and they said, our feet? And I said, well, you're supposed to get a rebound and just dash down the court. And that takes a lot of energy from your feet. So we just have fun when we pray. And I think God accepts that, because as Dante, I keep quoting him, he said, when he heard that I was going to pray with the team, he said that he thought it would be kind of boring. But he said, no, I was giving a scouting report at the same time. So he liked that part of the prayer. But
Thank you, Sister Jean. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for asking me these questions. And I just love telling everybody how good our students are, our team, our athletes, how well they work at their schoolwork, their sports, their social life. They just have everything possible.
Welcome back in. We bring in CJ and Sharif. If you missed us yesterday, CJ and Sharif are our March Madness social media leads. So if you see anything posted on March Madness, Instagram, Twitter, etc., it's these guys. How you guys doing? You get any sleep lately?
No sleep at all. In fact, losing sleep. Didn't mention it yesterday. I wanted to bring up how disappointed we both are about East Carolina not making the NCAA tournament this year.
Both is a crazy statement.
It's been racking my brain, man. His too. He won't admit it.
Sharif, I was going to say, I don't think you agree with that, but
yeah, I think they are a well-deserved team left out, in fact.
I think anybody can make it. I think we deserved a chance. I'm disappointed we didn't get it.
Fair enough.
Well, CJ, we'll let you have that one for now.
I need this.
But can you show us what's going on in the social media world?
Sure, of course. So we've got a bunch of celebrity brackets that we want to show you in a little bit. We're going to lead off with something that actually is unrelated to the tournament, but big story regardless. The AP All-America teams came out today, and I don't know about you, but to me, not really any surprises on the list.
Yeah, I think these are all going to be top players in the tournament. Like you said, no surprises on the list, but I think the funnest part about our job is we get to see people that almost have the opposite of opinion of what is actually true. So if you read our comments, it's like overwhelming majority, like, why is Zach Edey here?
Yes, why is the overwhelming best player in college basketball on this list?
Yeah, so,
who knows?
Yeah, so why is the guy that's averaging 24 and 12 and is the reigning National Player of the Year and the favorite to be National Player of the Year here? We don't know, apparently. So that's probably the most fun part about these lists.
The best part about this job, by the way, is being told how clueless we are about basketball. Everybody watching, please tell us more how little we know. It just makes me so happy.
In fact, CJ and Sharif made this list. I'm just kidding.
Yes, of course. According to the people who talked to us, we certainly did.
Exactly.
But
all right, let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, we just mentioned to you a second ago, we were going to talk about some celebrity brackets. If we go to the next slide, we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
The first one. You heard just a little bit ago, you heard Andy Katz talking about going through a bracket with President Obama. Earlier today, we got President Obama's 2024 March Madness bracket.
Yeah, I think the most interesting part about this bracket is the fact that he has Vermont beating Duke in the first round, which, fun fact, we got President Obama's bracket last year. He had Duke winning the entire tournament. And keep in mind, they brought back most of their team.
Yep.
So it's just funny that he has them losing to a team that pretty much loses in the first round every single season. He has them losing. So I guess it might be a little bit of spite, the fact that they let him down last season. I don't know.
Yeah, but he does have UConn winning it all. Not really a surprise there. A lot of people have UConn winning it all, but nice to have his bracket back. Let's check out the next one. We have Bijan Robinson, formerly a college football standout, now plays for the Falcons.
Yeah.
Another bracket here where the alma mater, he's from Texas, went to Texas, so he picked Texas to win the national championship. Something we see pretty often with a lot of these players.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it yesterday with the Mac McClung bracket. Like you said, a lot of these people that go to these schools, they're not going to go against their schools, which makes a lot of sense. I'd probably say his biggest upset was Western Kentucky winning in the first round.
Yes,
so.
He does have Western Kentucky winning in the first round. And actually, looking at it right here, we have it pulled up on our laptop too. He has a Sweet 16 matchup with a 11 seed playing a 10 seed, NC State playing Colorado. So
yeah, that's a really big surprise.
Wow.
Let's go to the next one. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. Sharif, maybe you do.
We're gonna refer to him as the Bachelor. I think he was on the Bachelor
You're
last
safe
night.
with that.
Yeah. So he is the Bachelor. So pretty much no surprises in this bracket,
No.
which is the funniest part. He actually put on his IG story. Obviously, he's been busy with reality TV, so he doesn't really have a big chance to follow college basketball at the moment.
Yeah.
Super pumped.
They're
for
not
March,
allowed
though.
to have their phones when they're on The Bachelor. So
Yes,
like,
exactly.
can't really blame the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to follow that up. The actual funniest thing about this bracket is posting it, and everybody in our comments has no clue who this is. Nobody has any idea what's going on here. He is in the comment section. If you
defending his picks.
Yes, you can go look on Instagram right now, and you can see him defending all of his picks on Instagram.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Wow.
But
He's more
That
confident
is
than I am.
too funny.
Yeah, he's super pumped for March. He made sure we told him thank you for the bracket. He was like, no, thank you for asking me.
Yeah.
Like he's hired.
So he is super pumped.
We got to get more Bachelor watchers on the March Madness train.
Exactly. Precisely.
Come on.
I completely
Yes.
agree.
But let's go to the last one. We have another celebrity bracket, somebody that a lot of people are going to remember from just a couple years ago. We have Doug Edert, March Madness legend, who went on that run with St. Peter's. He actually only has St. Peter's going to the round of 32, though.
Which, yeah, to be fair, it is a 15-2 still.
Yeah,
It is a 15-2. So
over another SEC team.
Yeah, another SEC team. Things that no one would really people are picking St. Peter's as stats told us. So, like you said, mainly because of that previous run. I think some people were mad about another one of his picks. I can't really remember exactly what it was, but maybe it's just Tennessee fans.
Yeah.
A little bit bitter that he picked, his former school to beat them. So, yeah, March Madness legend. Always interacts with our post. Really good guy.
And another guy who picked UConn to win the national championship. Again, nothing too surprising.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead. Go on.
Yeah, I would say it's funny how we talked about Western Kentucky and St. Peter's on the 15, where they're leading the most you've ever seen on that line, and here you guys show off two sub brackets that have those upsets happening. So clearly, maybe they're leading the pack here. Maybe there's more Bachelor fans filling in brackets than we thought, and they're following his lead.
If you ask our fans in our comment section, they know nothing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we might not be the best barometer here.
Listen, we had a wide variety of brackets, and apparently every single one of them know nothing. So make of that what you will.
On this last thing we wanted to touch on, Andy Katz is doing a bunch of lists this week. If you want to watch any of them, he's going live every day this week to talk about a bunch of these lists on Bleacher Report. This list specifically is his top 10 players on double-digit seeds. We talked a lot yesterday about some of the teams that we both have a lot of faith in to make first-round upsets, make deep runs in the tournament. These are some of the players who will be leading those double-digit seeds. Some of the, I guess everybody here is a notable name, I guess we should say, but some of the specific players we even mentioned yesterday to watch out for. The first one that stuck out to me was Tucker DeVries from Drake. Like I mentioned, I think Drake's going to make at least the round of 32, maybe further. specifically because of Tucker DeVries. They have fantastic guard play, defend really well. And I think you were really high on Jalen House and Isaiah Stevens.
Yeah, Jalen House, I think, is a really good pick there. I think you didn't like my New Mexico pick that much yesterday. Could be wrong, but yeah, Jalen House is a terrific player, son of Eddie House, former NBA player, NBA champion as well. Did he win with the Celtics?
He did,
and the Heat, I believe, maybe. But he's a fantastic defensive player, one of the best defensive guards in the country. If you're a big fan of Jamal Shed, you'll be a fan of this guy too. So, and Isaiah Stevens been Colorado State's best player for like the past 2 or 3 seasons now. So anyone that's, again, used to Mountain West after dark, he's a guy that you should keep.
I actually disagreed with him not on New Mexico. I got ahead of myself. I disagreed with him on his James Madison pick,
yes.
which if you look, Terrence Edwards Jr. is number 10 on the list. Jalen House is number 3 on the list.
Fair enough. I'm just a little bit biased towards the Fun Belt, as a Georgia State alum. So.
All right, guys. Well, this is great stuff, but we are running a little over time. So one more question before we let you guys go. What was your best memory from last year in that room? Actually, you probably were working in that room covering the tournament.
We were in this room every day during the tournament. We gave it a little bit of thought. I think my favorite moment, I think Andy Katz talked about it earlier too, I want to touch on it as well, is just watching Marquise Noel just go crazy during the whole tournament. Not only was he going crazy on the court, he was doing so well for us across social media. So obviously that's a big plus to both of us. But just watching everybody light up about how cool Marquise Noel is, how cool Kansas State was in general making their run. It was just really special.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest one was Furman over UVA last season. It was both of our first time ever working a tournament. So one person that gets kind of memed right now is Paul George, because on his podcast, he's always like, as NBA players, what was your welcome to the league moment? That was kind of like my welcome to the league moment of this job, right? Like that moment happens and it's like we have to transition from fan to, okay, I'm working this thing. I have to get this clip out. Yeah. So Furman over UVA, that's definitely my favorite moment of the tournament last season.
Ask me again next year and it will be East Carolina's at-large bid to the NCAA tournament.
All right, we're holding you to that, CJ. Guys, thanks so much. Stats and I actually sat down with a celebrity to go over his bracket. We have primetime host of Turner Classic Movies, Ben Mankiewicz. But first, let's take a look at another March Madness bracket recap. We're going to take a look at 2022 now for another bracket breakdown. Wayne, what stood out to you the most about this year's March Madness?
Yeah, this year was pretty incredible. First, this was Coach K's final year, ending a 47-year career where he coached teams in 36 NCAA tournaments, made 13 Final Fours, and won 5 championships. And all that took a backseat to the actual game between UNC and Duke. Heated rivals, only 9 miles apart, playing in the tournament against each other for the first time ever. And that was in a loaded Final Four with Kansas and Villanova. Then, of course, you have 15 seed St. Peter's winning 3 games to make the Elite Eight. And then the championship game featuring a record 16-point comeback for Kansas.
Wow. All right. So who were the favorites to win it all, according to our fans picking brackets?
Yeah, so Gonzaga was yet again the most popular team for the second year in a row. 30.26% picked Gonzaga to win the title. Eventual champion Kansas, though, was third at 7.87%, behind Arizona, which came in around 14%. The Jayhawks almost lost to number 8 UNC in the title game, like we mentioned, with that 16-point deficit. And UNC almost matched 1985 Villanova as the lowest seed to win it all. UNC went all the way on only 0.76% of brackets, which is honestly pretty good for an 8 seed, but still only a little inside the top 20 for most popular pick.
So an 8 seeds in the title game. You mentioned earlier St. Peter's, but there's got to be many other stunning upsets this year, right?
Oh, yeah. So we define upsets as a win by a team seed at least 5 seeds lower. And by that count, we had 13. And of course, we had St. Peter's winning 3 games. 2 12 seeds won in the first round. 3 11 seeds beat 6 seeds. And one of those, Michigan, was actually picked in more than 50% of brackets.
How long did the brackets actually make it in this one with so many upsets?
Yeah, so only 192 left after that day with all these upsets, and every bracket busted when Iowa State beat LSU in 11-6 game. It really kind of felt like a repeat of 2021. As for the second year in a row, we had a under 200 after the first day, a 15-2, and the last perfect bracket bust on game 28. So the exact same number as 2021 and nothing close to Greg Nagel this year.
We welcome in Ben Mankiewicz, the primetime host of Turner Classic Movies, to the Quest for the Perfect Bracket Show. Ben, thanks so much for coming on. We are so excited. Wayne Stats here is a huge TCM fan, by the way, has been on
Great.
2 TCM cruises, runs the TCM Movie Club at TNT Sports too.
Yeah, and also going to festivals, going this year as well. So I'm very, very excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, probably the first person to say this, but it's the first thing I put on the TV in the morning, and the last thing I make sure I check out at night before I go to bed. Yeah,
that's so great. Thanks for telling me that, because we like one. I like your age that you're doing that, so that's good. And it's just exciting. So let's hang out at the festival. Let's get a drink or a coffee or something. It's a good festival this year.
Yeah, I'm
there
very
you go,
excited.
Stats.
Yeah.
So, Ben, we all know you love classic movies, but can you tell us a little bit about your sports fandom? Maybe some of your favorite memories growing up around sports and March Madness, because that's what we're here for.
Oh, I don't care for sports. No, I was sure that I was going to have a career as a sports broadcaster. I mean, that was my passion. I was I was mostly a baseball fan, but I could easily have seen a career as a broadcaster in football or basketball too. I was, all year there was always something that mattered to me. That came from my dad, probably trying to bond with my dad over baseball. He bonded with my cousins, who I loved. They were a couple years older, and they were there during the 1975 World Series, and they were watching it with my dad. I thought baseball was, boring. But I was not going to watch these guys bond with my father. So I willed myself to be a baseball fan in 1976. And it took really in 1977. I've been an Oakland A's fan for, whatever that is, nearly 50 years. But I was a big Washington Bullets fan, huge Wizards fan. And you're talking about happy memories. I mean, this is where I keep my pens. And this is, I don't know if you can see it, but Bullets capture NBA crown. And that was June, the paper was from June 8th. That was June 7th. It was just about our last day of school that year. And I just remember running through the house when the Bullets beat the Sonics in 1978, and then going to school the next day and seeing my friends. I mean, I'm sure I've been happier, married and I have a child, but that was a pretty great moment. It was the first championship I'd ever experienced. I haven't, I'm an A's fan and an old Redskins fan. And that's part of the reason the name that I bailed on him, but mostly it was the owner. So the teams are bad now, all of them. Every team I care about is very, very, very bad, because UCLA basketball was also a big part of our family. My father went there, was the sports editor of the Daily Bruin, and then later the editor-in-chief of the Daily Bruin. And UCLA basketball from the time I was 8, even growing up in DC, was a very big deal. And I'm winning the title in 95, and I was on the phone with my father the whole game. And it was great. That was also a great, great moment.
Well, let's see your March Madness bracket this year. I want to look over what you filled out. It's always so much fun. Let's talk some upset picks you got going, maybe your Final Four, and then, of course, your champion. Well,
first of all, I'd like to say that I did a bracket. Like, I used to do brackets, obviously, of course, with my friends. Everybody did. And we did I think it was 86 when Louisville won the title. Everybody had a disastrous first opening weekend, the first 4 days. And so we did a new bracket in the Sweet 16. And I hit all 15 games from the Sweet 16 in, which is much easier than a whole bracket. But it gave me at age 19 this sense that I really knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've literally you talk about the perfect bracket, and I think about that perfect Sweet 16, which is, a cop out. But I'm like, yeah, I already did that. I did that. I can do it again. So I'm always stunned when I look on the, after the first round, and I go, 21-11 in the first round. I'm like, how can I miss 11 games? I'm perfect. I know this. I know this cold.
You still have this false sense of hope that you're going to.
Oh my God. It's such a unearned sense of unearned sense of self-worth and self-security.
Which, by the way, is the point of this whole show. Do you know the odds of a perfect bracket?
Yeah, it's like 1 in a couple trillion or something. It's inconceivable.
Wayne, tell them the real number here.
We're talking into 9.2 quintillion, which is a number
Quintillion.
that doesn't come to mind very much. It's very almost impossible. Let's just say.
Yeah, it's totally impossible.
Yeah.
So,
All right, well, let's check out your picks. What do you got? Tell us some of your upset picks and all the way down to your Final Four and champ.
well, I mean, look. First of all, what's different is when I thought I was going to have a career as a broadcaster and sports broadcaster, I certainly knew more than anybody I knew about sports. Like, I mean, and I just, I wasn't like a crazy fan. I was composed about it. I was thoughtful, and it's just totally gone. Like, you have a life, you have a child, you have a different job. You're not working in it. And now I'm like, I can still watch a game and enjoy it in the same way. But, I see games all the time where I don't know anybody on any team. So now it seems ridiculous that I'm even making this bracket. But I do I watched a lot of championship week, and I think there is something to, all things being equal, the teams that are good teams with some good veteran teams with good guard play that get hot are worth, that's why I see New Mexico advancing. But all year, Arizona has scared me. Tommy Lloyd's a great coach, and they're deep. They play defense. Caleb Love looks like a different player than last year, than the last couple of years, where he could be great at times, but he just seems like inside the system now, he's become definitely the man on that team. And he reminds me a little of, if my memory serves me, of like Matt McClung, who was this explosive player for a long time. But like when he transferred, I think he transferred twice, but at the end, like he was just a much more in control player than he had been, and then they made a great tournament run with him. So, and that's why New Mexico, I think can make a run also, given how well they played. I think I have NC State winning a game, and Oregon too. Oregon, because with Dante, it's not the same team at all. Like that's a tournament team. If they'd had him all year, I think they'd be an 8 or 9 seed. And Colorado's also really deep. So I suspect I think I have the Pac-12. I have all of them winning to get to the round of 32. And I think I then threw a little Oregon extra upset to get them to the Sweet 16. Washington State winning a game. I think Colorado winning the play-in and then winning once to get to 32. And then Arizona I have winning the national title. So.
All right. What are your thoughts on your Final Four? So you got
Final Four. I end up with you think you're being radical, and then you look and you have 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s. But UConn and Arizona and then on the other half, I think I got Purdue and Marquette, and then Marquette because I like Kolek a lot for the same reason, like veteran senior guard, does everything, rebounds, and they have shooting around him too. And I like Shaka Smart, so I'd like to see Marquette get to the final. I think they can. I think Purdue's, it's hard not to think about Virginia and losing to a 16 and then getting it back together. So, Purdue's not just Edey, although, he's such a gigantic presence. That's literally and figuratively, and such a good player and so easy to root for. So, I got Arizona and Marquette in the final, and I picked Arizona. But if Marquette goes that far, that means Kolek has been amazing, and I imagine that. But it's weird. Let me use this reference. So, like, the best 3 points when the Cavaliers beat the Warriors in Game 7 and win the title. Like, one guy, LeBron, blocked a shot. He's a good player, that LeBron James. And then
I've heard of him.
a somewhat erratic 3-point shooter, right, in Kyrie Irving, makes a very difficult 3. And the best 3-point shooter of all time, Steph Curry, misses an open 3. Like, it's random. It's basketball. And particularly now with so many good teams and so many great shooters, like whatever, the team that makes their open shots wins. Like, it seems like, that part of the game is not complicated. Getting those open shots, that's the complicated part. And then the great players doing it at exactly the right moment. But there's so much randomness here which is why it's 1 in a 2 quintillion or whatever it is to win,
Yeah, Ben, I love your picks, especially last year. People loved the 12s and it didn't happen. So I'm with you that we could see some 12s coming through this year. Those 12s look really, really good.
Is that right? Were there no 12-5 upsets last year? That got to be the first time in a long time.
Yeah, so it's only happened 6 times since expansion, so it's pretty rare. So, and people loved the 12s last year, so I feel like we're due for kind of going back to the way things were, and so that's why I'm kind of like now I feel like I should change my picks because ours look kind of similar with Grand Canyon and McNeese going, and I also have New Mexico State going to 16 and 11 line. So yeah, it's I love these upset picks. That's what March is. It's picking the upsets and then maybe change a little bit when you get close to the Final Four, like you said, more 1s and 2s and 3s.
Yeah. I mean, but that said, there's so many. When UCLA won in 1995, I mean, I use that as my little point of reference. They won 10 times before that. I'd like to point out. But there weren't 20 teams that I felt like could win the championship. Or maybe it's probably over 15. Yeah, you felt like there were 6 or 7, and. And this year there's just so many good players. I watched Grand Canyon's championship game and I was like, God, they're long and they're fast. I mean, you're a UCLA fan. Every team looks like they play fast.
Yeah.
They're just, again, they play fast and they can score. And I'm now, whereas I used to kind of look at defense, now one reason why I don't have Houston advancing is because of what happened in the Big 12 at the end of the Big 12 tournament. Like teams that go through these long periods where it's challenging to score, I don't know. They were the teams that I'm more comfortable dismissing them, even though could Houston win the title? Of course they could. And I'm not disrespecting them in any way. I think, I'm sure they care. Hey, that guy, that old movie host, the guy who hosts the black and white movie, he's not giving us. That's right. That's going to motivate.
Yeah,
going to motivate Kelvin Sampson. Right. I'm going to be on the blackboard there. So, and I like that A&M can. They're so like sometimes they can't score, but then they have these moments where the defense steps up, and they can be. Mississippi State can be electric. Or Texas A&M. I have beaten
Texas A&M.
Yeah. So I mean, Texas A&M. Yeah, there are times they can just look so good. So.
Yeah, Ben. All of a sudden, your DMs are going to be filled with angry sports fans. Like,
what's
going on here? Well, looking at both of you, you can obviously have movie fans and sports fans. It's what both of you are. So I want to tie the two together. Ben, I'm sure you've gotten this a lot. I know people probably ask you your favorite movie all the time, but we'll tie it into basketball. And I want to get both of you to give me your Final Four of classic films.
It's like, it's no easier than answering your favorite movie. I mean, favorite movie, I can always get away with saying Casablanca if I need to move along, but I like talking. I like getting the question because but it's hard, it feels like it ends up feeling like this cop-out answer, even though I think it was the greatest studio film ever made. So anyway, I made a Final Four. It could change tomorrow. Mostly, I also made an Elite 8 of Tom Hanks movies because the last 2 movies I watched were Charlie Wilson's War, which I love. I don't understand why people don't think it's one of the great political movies ever. It's fantastic. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's so good. And he's such a different kind of character in it. And then I watched, because I always do, I watched Saving Private Ryan. So I watched in like 2 nights and I was like, and then, so I just, again, I do have an Elite 8 of Tom Hanks movies, but my Final Four all time, I'll put Casablanca, Paths of Glory, the Kubrick film with Kirk Douglas. It's a war movie and a courtroom movie. Ace in the Hole, Billy Wilder's film, and Michael Clayton, because I never get tired of watching Michael Clayton, Tony Gilroy, and Clooney leading the cast there. Tom Wilkinson is it's a perfect movie. I love it.
That's great. I love that. Yeah, those are great for it. Michael, do you want me to go through mine?
Absolutely.
So we share a Final Four. So maybe this is the UConn of both our brackets. We both I'll put Casablanca for sure in mine. But I think if I had to go number 1 overall, I'd probably go with Matter of Life and Death. Really, I could do all Powell and Pressburger as I wanted to, but I'll vary a little bit. Then I'll go with I got to get a pre-code in there, so I'll go with Jewel Robbery. Never fails to make me laugh. And then move a little later, I'll do All That Heaven Allows to get in the Douglas Sirk in there. Gotta love.
You intentionally created a rounded bracket. Like I thought about that. I'm like, do I put like a do I put random harvest in here, right? Do I put sort of like
yeah.
and then I was like, just put the things that always move me. But I hear you. And to your pal Pressburger point, in a matter of life and death, it was a great pick, by the way. So with Paths of Glory, I can do a Final Four of just 1957 movies. Like I could do Paths of Glory, Sweet Smell of Success, Face in the Crowd, and 12 Angry Men. And I'll be like, that's a totally valid Final Four all by itself.
Yeah, ask me on a different day, and I'll probably swap in, 4,000 other possibilities. I love you mentioned Ronald Coleman and Greer Garson together, and there's just great movie there.
Random Harvest.
So great. Random Harvest is wonderful. Yeah.
Because no one asked, very quickly, at the top of so you have Charlie Wilson's War, Saving Private Ryan, Bridge of Spies, and Captain Phillips. That's actually probably the final four, come to think of it. And then the other four were Greyhound. I really loved Greyhound. It was great. Road to Perdition, Sleepless in Seattle, and oh man, I forgot Green Mile. I was going to put Nothing in Common in the Elite Eight, but I probably have to put Green Mile. But you could get to a Sweet 16 of Tom Hanks movies very easily.
For sure.
Very
yeah.
easily.
Well, Ben, we'll have to call you back in an hour if you're not busy and get your updated Final Four.
That's right. Okay. That's right. Everything's changing. Yeah, no, thank you for setting this up so early in the morning. I love talking basketball and movies early in the morning.
Yeah, it's early for you over on the West Coast.
I did. I had jury duty, but I don't have to report today. So I'm free as a bird.
Before we let you go, Ben, I have to ask, this might be a little bit easier for you. How about favorite basketball movie?
Oh yeah, sure. I didn't make a favorite basketball list, but I love Love and Basketball. A Gina Prince Bythewood's movie. I like Blue Chips mostly because, well, it's pretty fun and it's good also, but there's a bunch of UCLA guys in it. I think Nigel Miguel is in it. There are a couple former UCLA players who play basketball players in it. I think Nigel Miguel has an actual role in it. Obviously Hoosiers, I just love the moment of the huddle when Hackman designs the play with Jimmy as the decoy, and then nobody says anything to them, but they're just staring at him. What? And Jimmy's like, I'll make it. Like, it's such a movie moment, but it's a hacky, cheesy movie moment that are my favorite things when the movie is good enough to deliver those moments. Right?
It works. Yep.
Yeah, it works. Oh my God, it's so good. It makes me. Hoop Dreams would definitely be in a basketball Final Four. That was a documentary that sort of shook me when I saw it. It reframes a little bit how you look at life and the presumptions you make. So that's probably Love and Basketball, Hoop Dreams, Hoosiers, Blue Chips. That's probably safe for me as a basketball Final Four. But I mean, I love He Got Game also, but whatever that would be. He Got Game Spike Lee would make the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Stats, do you have a favorite basketball movie before we let Ben go?
So I probably would go with Hoosiers. I mean, Dennis Hopper is a great, and that cast is just so stacked. The point I need to turn off my historical brain and be like, well, that's not accurate. They changed that. That's different from the real story. So you got to turn that part of the brain for these movies, but totally. It's hard not to get swept in just how the emotional impact of it and just how great, that movie looks and that cast. I mean, you can't go wrong with Gene Hackman as a pick ever. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I agree. Some of my favorite basketball movies are the Road to the Final Four commercials.
Oh yeah,
with Sam Jackson and Spike Lee and Charles and Jim Nance. When those are good, they're the good ones are good.
Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. We had so much fun. You can find Ben on Turner Classic Movies channel at primetime, and he's also the host of the Talking Pictures podcast as well. So make sure to check that out. Ben, best of luck with your quest for a perfect bracket. We know you still got some hope on that. So good luck this season.
If I get it here and don't win any money off it, literally would be the most disappointing thing in my life. Right? What a waste that the perfect bracket would be here. Right.
Ben, thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
Well, Stats, that was fun. You must have really enjoyed that as a TCM fan.
Oh yeah, I'm still thinking about it.
But I hate to say it, it is time for you to pull up your bracket and show the world your picks. Today's your day.
All right, yeah, let's get to it. So I'm already regretting half these picks, I gotta say, but this is what I got so far.
All right.
It's funny, yeah. Right now, so I got Purdue winning it all against
Going with
UConn.
Purdue.
Yeah, so this I'm not the first person to say the stat, but it's kind of a jokey stat. But every team that's lost to a 16 seed has won the championship the next year. So I'm going with that one as a 1 seed losing to 16. So I think Purdue's going to
like
go all
it.
the way this year. Yeah, pull the Virginia in 2019. So this is what I got cooking for the Final Four. But Nicole, do you have anything? What is one to point out? Like any upsets I got?
I would love to see your upset picks, your Final Four, anything crazy you have going.
Yeah, so for upsets, I'm really all in on Drake. I think Tucker DeVries is going to take Drake to the Sweet 16. I think they might fall to Illinois there, but I think that's going to be a really cool run to watch Drake go on a run there. I think this bracket, Andy Katz feels the same way, and if Andy thinks this, then I think I'm good company. I think the Midwest can be kind of crazy. So I have McNeese taking out Gonzaga and Oregon taking out South Carolina. And then I think that's going to help out Purdue a lot in terms of getting there. But I got to say, this one scared me. TCU, Purdue was a scary one for me in terms of, how far I wanted Purdue to go. But I think Purdue can get out of that and kind of make the Final Four run there. On the other side, I feel like everyone's now all in on New Mexico. It seems like I have the Lobos in the Sweet 16. I think that just seems like it's going to happen. They've played. They look so good in the conference tournament. I think it's going to continue there, especially with the favorable matchup against Clemson to start things off in the first round. I love their chances here. I almost went with Grand Canyon. This kind of can show how one game can really change how your bracket looks. Going in before the bracket was revealed, I was like, I know I'm picking Grand Canyon. It's just gonna happen. I convinced myself I was gonna do it. And then come to film this out, I was like, but St. Mary's though. St. Mary's could have been a couple seats higher and it would have been too weird. And of course, I St. Mary's going to the Sweet 16. So anyone else would probably been Grand Canyon maybe in the Sweet 16. I don't know. We'll see. That was a tough one for me not to pick. I love picking, the upsets. That's what makes it the most fun, especially these early rounds. Trying to pick out any fun results for people to kind of root for with the Cinderellas. Go up top here. I want to point out Nebraska. Shout out to Nebraska, looking for their first tournament win. So I have that one happening for the Huskers there. Of course, they play Houston probably in second round. So that'd be kind of a rude second round matchup there. But that'd be cool if Nebraska can win their first tournament game. I do think James Madison can get it done against Wisconsin. I know Wisconsin looks pretty good. Yeah, looks pretty strong in the Big Ten tournament. They were shaky for a while. We know JMU knows how to win. 30+ wins. So I think they can get it done. And NC State. Again, just like New Mexico, everyone seems to be picking this one now. Now I'm kind of wondering, do I want to hop off the bandwagon here? NC State, I think, can knock off Texas Tech. And I'll tell you what, this part right here, the NC State, Kentucky, Marquette, even the playing winner of Colorado Boise, that was really hard for me to pick between who would come up out of these two games and go on to face Houston in the Elite Eight. That's why I have Kentucky in the Final Four, but I'm not really confident picking Kentucky really after the first round. I mean, that tells you how hard it is to get these games right. Is you have a team in the Final Four and you're like, yeah, but that second round matchup can be pretty hard. So you start second guessing yourself right away.
Well, it looks like a great bracket. It's funny stats. It's like now that we know what the nation is picking, it's like our picks don't feel cool anymore because we know everybody else is doing it too.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, just before we head out, what are your main tactics or any tips you have?
Yeah, so I like picking at least a couple 11 and 12s. I know we didn't see any 12s last year, which kind of makes it feel like we're definitely due to see some 12s this year. That's why it was so hard for me not to pick Grand Canyon to win this year's tournament. But I think that's why I did go with JMU and McNeese. So I actually went with 2 there. I think this year, as you saw, Mikkel, with how tough the 11-6s were, the 3 closest games that we're seeing right now are the 11-6 games, which goes to how crazy that could really change a lot of people's brackets depending on who wins those games. I think that could be a tough one. So I love starting with 11s and 12s when it comes to upset picks. I try to do 1 versus 2 Elite Eights. Of course, that's why the bracket, if it goes according to plan, that's how it will go. But how often does that happen? Not very much. So I try to sprinkle in some 3s, maybe some 5s and 4s in there. But I tell you what, this year in particular, the ones really do seem incredibly strong this year, especially the top 3 ones. They seem like it's going to be hard not to pick them to make the Final Four this year, which goes to show when I watched none of the 1 seeds make the Final Four like we saw last year. At any time you're confident in something, usually March Madness has a surprise for you. But normally speaking, 1s and 2s are the way to go. Sprinkling some 11 and 12 upsets. And I like doing multiple brackets. Maybe I'll do another bracket where I do have Grand Canyon winning, and they're the only 12 I have winning the first round. So, we'll see how it goes. I'm not decided yet. I might change these picks by tonight. I'm not sure yet, but this is what I have right now.
Yeah, well, we'll have to get an update on your picks tomorrow and Thursday before brackets lock. So thanks for sharing stats. That'll wrap up day 2 of the Quest for the Perfect Bracket show. Thanks for joining us today. We hope everybody had fun, because we sure did. Make sure you keep filling out those brackets as we get closer to the lock on Thursday. You can scan the code on the left to take you to our Capital One Bracket Challenge game. And we talked to Andy Katz and Ben Mankiewicz today, and you can join their Bracket Challenge game groups. So we'll be back at it tomorrow with more at 4 p.m. Eastern. For Wayne Stats, the whole crew, I'm Michaela Chester. Thanks again. We have another classic March Madness moment prepared to get everyone excited. So stay around for that. Don't forget to fill out those brackets, and see you tomorrow.
2.7 left. Last chance for the Panthers.
And he said he wouldn't take a timeout in this situation.
Jesperson, half-court heave for the win. Got it! Jesperson nails it! Northern Iowa wins it at the buzzer, 75-72. An all-time NCAA tournament shot from Paul Jesperson.
What an incredible finish to this game. You can just see the heartbreak of that. I mean, it's one thing to get beat by a 15-foot jump shot. It's another thing to get beat by a half-court heave.
I was just hoping it was going in. It felt good when it left my hands, but you never know with those shots. I'm just thankful it went in. Thankful we get to live another day.
More March magic for Northern Iowa.